skies across the Midlands, where it's going to be mostly dry. The odd shower possible there, especially towards the north, but remaining mostly dry. Temperatures falling away under clear skies. And those showers easing over the northeast of England this evening, with increasing amounts of clear skies developing. Those clearing skies easing, winds allowing temperatures to quickly fall away after sunset. And a similar picture too for Scotland. Clear skies again developing as those showers ease into the evening, turning colder under the skies, especially in the east. So although it's a dry end of the day for Northern Ireland, high cloud will already be edging eastwards through the evening, helping to keep those temperatures a little milder. And looking ahead to tomorrow, cloud and hill fog gradually edging eastwards overnight, with patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle affecting many western areas. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow and for tomorrow morning.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Polly Middlehurst, and these are your news headlines. The Education Secretary has become the first government minister to back reducing the COVID isolation period from 7 to 5 days, as he thinks it would help tackle teaching staff shortages. Nadeem Zahawi says there's no doubt staff absences will rise as pupils return to school and that the next 2 weeks will be bumpy. He's also insisting lateral flow tests will remain free, following some reports they could be limited to high-risk settings. Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and the Labour Party had criticised such a move, but Mr Zahawi says he's puzzled by a report in the Sunday Times newspaper suggesting the test's universal availability may be axed. Meanwhile, the UK has reached a total COVID-related death toll of more than 150,000 since the pandemic began. Court documents claim the Australian government did not give Novak Djokovic an assurance his medical exemption to enter the country would be accepted. The tennis player's legal team has said the authorities indicated he met the requirements for quarantine-free entry. Djokovic is spending a fourth day in an immigration detention centre ahead of a court hearing tomorrow. One immigration lawyer says there's a lot at stake for the world number one.
He has to win it, otherwise he faces a re-entry ban of 3 years to 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Potentially losing millions of dollars. So I think he's stuck in that place where he knows that if I get deported now, I won't be allowed back for a minimum 3 years, hence losing a lot of money. So it's something that he has to win, perhaps in a situation where if he'd just walked away at the start, it might not have got this far.
The Housing Secretary is expected to put pressure on developers to pay to replace dangerous cladding on low-rise flats. Michael Gove will set out his plans for helping leaseholders trapped in unsafe and unsellable homes tomorrow. But Labour says other non-cladding related costs need to be included in his announcement. Darren Matthews is a leaseholder. He says the measures should be enforced rather than voluntary.
I don't honestly think, in my opinion, developers will make a voluntary contribution. I think the only way that they will make a contribution and have any responsibility is if it's under legal duress, if it's enshrined in law, if it's there in black and white. This is your responsibility, these are consequences. If you don't do it, we'll come after you. They're not going to make a voluntary contribution.
The supermarket Morrisons will scrap use-by dates on most of its milk from the end of January in a bid to reduce food waste. The supermarket will instead place best before dates on 90% of its own brand milk and encourage customers to use a sniff test to check quality. It believes that's going to stop millions of pints of its own brand milk from being thrown away every year. A young boy lost in the chaos of the Afghanistan airlift has been reunited with his relatives. Sahal Ahmadi was just 2 months old when he was handed over to a soldier across an airport wall in Kabul. 29-year-old taxi driver Hamid Safi found him in the airport and took him in. Sahal was finally reunited with his grandfather and other relatives in Kabul on Saturday. The Duchess of Cambridge has released 3 new portraits marking turning 40 years old today. Kate Middleton poses in
fully
3
deployed JWST observatory.
Our apologies. Kate Middleton poses in 3 different Alexander McQueen dresses for fashion photographer Paola Roversi and also wore earrings that once belonged to Princess Diana. The photographs were taken at Kew Gardens in November last year and will enter the permanent collection of the National Portrait Gallery. Bright and colourful northern lights have appeared in Finland's Lapland region, colouring the sky completely green. The lights began dancing in the sky early on yesterday evening and bright arch shapes could be seen for almost an hour. According to a photographer who captured the scene, these were some of the biggest and most picturesque auroras of the past couple of years. You're up to date. I'm back in an hour. See you then.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK looking rather drier with showers easing and clear spells, although rain arrives in the southwest. Let's take a look at the detail then. The southwest of England already cloudy with hill fog edging eastwards. Outbreaks of rain already across much of Devon and Cornwall. In contrast, drier and clearer across the southeast. Winds will be easing, which will allow temperatures to fall away. It's going to be much drier for South Wales, but cloud already thickening from the southwest with some hill fog and light rain possible. And much clearer skies across the Midlands, where it's going to be mostly dry. The odd shower possible there, especially towards the north, but remaining mostly dry. Temperatures falling away under clear skies. And those showers easing over the northeast of England this evening, with increasing amounts of clear skies developing, those clearing skies easing, winds allowing temperatures to quickly fall away after sunset. And a similar picture too for Scotland. Clear skies again developing as those showers ease into the evening, turning colder under the skies, especially in the east. So although it's a dry end of the day for Northern Ireland, high cloud will already be edging eastwards through the evening, helping to keep those temperatures a little milder. And looking ahead to tomorrow, cloud and hill fog gradually edging eastwards overnight with patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle affecting many western areas. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow and for tomorrow morning.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
It's that time again. Yes, the GB News pub is open and we're joined by Mark Francois. Mark, welcome to Talking Pints.
Thank you very much. Your good health.
Now, 20 years, Member of Parliament. 20 years you've been there. And you were climbing the ladder quite successfully, weren't you? Because you had a series of shadow appointments in the early days when Blair and then Brown were in power.
Yeah. I worked for John Osborne. I worked for William Hague. I worked indirectly for Cameron when I was the Shadow Europe Minister. So, I worked for some of the best that we had, really. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were, on quite a good career path progression. And then, you get ministerial position, the Armed Forces job, which I know you particularly love.
I had a great privilege to do that.
And you took that very, very seriously. And now you're a rebellious backbencher. Where did it all go wrong, Mark Francois?
I'll tell you where it went wrong. If wrong is the correct word. We had a referendum on whether or not to leave the European Union. Mm-hmm. After much debate, in which you and I played our part, the British people voted democratically and peacefully to leave the EU. If you remember, the government put around a booklet, £9 million of taxpayers' money, which famously said, this is your decision, the government will implement what you decide.
I took mine back to Downing Street.
Well, I've still got mine.
No, I took it back 100%.
And, so the British people said, thank you much, we've decided to leave. And the government said, that's the wrong decision. So they produced something called the withdrawal agreement, which did exactly the opposite of what it said on the tin, which would, when you work through all the Euro gobbledygook, and as you know as well as I do, you're a former MEP, how these things are written, the essence of the withdrawal agreement was it would have kept us in the European Union forever. And so I and a group of MPs who read the blooming thing and understood that fought tenaciously to stop it.
The Spartans.
The so-called Spartans. And I've written a book called Spartan Victory, which you very kindly allowed me to mention.
Yeah.
And that tells our story. It tells why we fought to the bitter end, why we defeated the government 3 times with others, because we knew what was at stake. And if they got that through, we would have been trapped in the EU forever, despite the democratic decision of the British people.
I agree with you, and thank God for the Spartans. Very interesting, though, isn't it, that there were 3 votes, and a certain Mr Johnson, and even Jacob Rees-Mogg, which I couldn't believe, on the 3rd time of asking, caved and voted for this dreadful agreement, which I have to say I was deeply disappointed by. No, look, what you did was great, because the Tory party didn't have the guts to get rid of Theresa May. They had the chance, and you gave me the opportunity to come in with the Brexit party, get the Conservatives their worst result in 200 years, and she was gone. So I think between you guys within and us without, we did guarantee that we would get Brexit. But you know something? Where Brexit is right now, it's not really as good as it should be, is it?
Well, we left the European Union after 3.5 years, and forgive me, but what the book's called The Inside Story of the Battle for Brexit, and it explains in layman's English what was really going on, what was really in the withdrawal agreement, why it was so cleverly camouflaged, what were all these motions in the Commons, what was the Brady Amendment, what was the Malthouse Compromise. So it actually takes the reader behind the scenes into Parliament and explains what was going on. So when people were at home literally shouting at the television about why are these MPs not implementing what we voted for, this explains why they weren't doing it and how a group of us in the end intervened to try and make sure that they did. So it takes you behind the scenes and it explains in detail in everyday English what was really going on. And that's why I wanted to write it, so there'd be a record of that anybody could understand.
Leadership's a very important thing. And Sarah Vine this morning wrote something very, very strong in the Mail. Leadership is not about taking the path of least resistance or always opting for the safest course of action. As Johnson's great hero Churchill showed, it is about making difficult choices in impossible circumstances and ultimately having the courage of your convictions. I think I know what the British Bulldog would have done in this situation today. Let's see what Boris decides. Now, that was Sarah Vine this morning writing urging him to make the decision that clearly today has been made. But the Conservative Party now is in a sense of real crisis. It's led by a man who went for Brexit but didn't really fully go for Brexit because he let you down at the last minute like a cheap pair of braces. You won't comment on that, I know.
Well, no, I will.
Go on.
And I say in the book why I think he did it.
Go on.
Because I think by that stage, Boris and some around him were looking ahead. You know, we were focused absolutely on the treaty. It was apparent by that stage that Theresa May was not going to get it through. Therefore, she was unlikely to survive. Right? And
No. She was going to survive because you guys had the chance the previous December, and you didn't have the guts to do it.
Well, hang on. Well, don't look at me. I'm one of the 112.
But it needed 45 people. It needed 45 people in December 18 to put up a motion of no confidence in her. You didn't do it.
Well, no, we had the vote of no confidence. We got the 48 letters. We had the vote. 200 voted to keep her.
Yeah.
117 voted not to keep her. I was one of the latter group.
Yeah.
But by the time you got to MV3, it was obvious that she couldn't survive much longer. And I think at that point, Boris and some around him had worked that out. And they, if you like, were looking to the future. And I think, at the end of the day, you'd have to have him on and ask him yourself, Nigel. But I suspect that what they were doing is, if you like, they were thinking too tactical. They were thinking too tactical bounds ahead. But by the way, there's a humorous story in here.
Go on.
About the time that Boris nearly got shot in Israel about 20 years
I've never heard this story.
Well, it's in there very quickly. We were on a trip.
Tell us.
It was a CFI trip with George Osborne and Theresa Villiers, and we were shown this security fence, and we were told how incredibly sensitive it was, and it's got all these. Whatever you do, touch the fence. So they take us out of the command centre. What does he do? He walks up to the fence. What happens if I do this? I mean, what's really going to happen? Anyway, about a minute later, this Jeep comes screaming over the hill. These 4 Israeli commandos, kind of dripping grenades. And this sergeant leaps out of the Jeep and he said, "Who touched the bloody fence?" And we all went, "Him." And, I think if Boris had given him any back chat at that point, look at it, he might well have been shot, and the whole history of the United Kingdom could be done.
It's time for Talking Pints, and I'm joined by Elizabeth Burton-Phillips, MBE. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you, Nigel.
To the programme. And you are far from alone in this country or around the Western world, and looking at what's happening in America right now. The numbers are horrible, but you lost a son.
Yeah, I did, yes.
Through drug addiction.
Through drug addiction, yes. He died by suicide as a result of his addiction to heroin at the age of 27, and it'll be 18 years next February since he died.
Yeah, I mean, there's no worse thing that any parent can go through, and I bet there are parents watching this now who've had children that have had drug problems,
yes,
and who are saying, "There, but for the grace of God, go I."
Yes.
An incredibly difficult thing to deal with.
It's very hard, yes, because of the stigma that's associated with addiction and society's judgment.
When you say stigma and judgment, do you mean that you felt or you feel that somehow people are looking at you and saying this is your problem as a parent?
Yes, I think that historically, certainly in the journey that I had with my son, because I was a teacher, it was something I kept to myself because I was frightened about how society, how my school would judge me as a mother and as a human being, and somehow it was my fault, and I'd caused it and I ought to be able to sort it out, that kind of thing. It's very difficult times for us, which is why when Nicholas died, it was my driving force behind setting up a charity to support families whose lives are impacted by addiction.
When this happened to you, did you turn for support and help? Was there anywhere to turn for support and help?
For the bereavement side of things, I found, to be honest, I found the support through writing, because I was an English teacher, and I found that was very cathartic, very helpful. But during the time that it was happening, I looked for support, and apart from the Samaritans, who were not trained in that specific area, there wasn't anything. They were very, very good and very understanding. Can't praise them highly enough for listening to me.
Now, all of this happens in 2004.
Yes.
Then in 2005, something remarkable happens.
Yeah, indeed.
There is a general election.
Yes.
And For once, folks, politics intervenes in a good way, because it doesn't always.
It does.
But remarkable. Just explain what happened in 2005.
Well, in 2005, I was a year down the line from Nicholas's death, and there was a knock on the door sometime around about March, and there stood Theresa May.
Your local MP.
My local MP, and she asked if I would be interested in voting for the Conservatives in the Maidenhead constituency, which is my local MP. And I was wobbly, but I said, well, you know, would you like to come in and have a chat? I'd like to hear what you have to say about supporting families affected by drugs. And she came in and I told her about what had happened, and she cried openly, and she was very supportive. And then she asked me to speak at the Conservative Women's Association, which, you know, was quite scary because it was a large group of over 400 women in twin set and pearls, you know, who wouldn't possibly have that problem in their families, of course.
Well, yeah, but of course they do.
And they do,
yes.
And they did. And so many came forward. And actually, it opened a new chapter in my life because at that point, I'd already made my mind up I was going to write a book. Mum, can you lend me 20 quid? What drugs did to my family? And that's when I met an agent, a book agent, whom she introduced me to.
And this has turned your life around. The book has done phenomenally well and been turned into a play.
Yes.
And you've established this charity, Drug Fam. And you are someone that goes and lectures in prisons,
Yeah, I do.
in schools. And you're talking, I guess, not just about the families that are bereaved, but just about the devastation that drugs can cause.
Yes, it's the impact that it has on the families, not only the person using the drugs or addicted to the drugs, which is now recognised, obviously, as a health issue and an illness. But certainly when my experience in prisons, particularly when we were touring the book as a play, was how engaged the prisoners were, both men and women.
Extraordinary.
And on the edge of their seats, many of them, with the way the play was performed.
Now, this is the blue box that you take to all of your speeches. Would you just explain that to us?
Yes.
Please?
So when Nicholas died, next to his body, I retrieved this blue box, and inside it is the drug paraphernalia that contributed to his final demise.
And this was heroin, was it?
This was heroin, yes, the spoons and the needles and so on. And over the years, when I've been invited to speak in schools or prisons, universities, rehabs and so on, I've always taken the box with me to explain to people that, you know, you start possibly with a cigarette, which is nicotine, and then you might try some, you know, skunk or something like that, and on you go. And eventually you could, not that you will, you could end up injecting heroin. And so it's been an important part of my journey.
It's very real.
It's very real. And any
Quite
family...
spooky, actually.
It is, yes. And any of your viewers watching this tonight will identify this if they have somebody in addiction. And of course, Mum, can you lend me 20 quid is the calling card for can I have some money for my drugs. So it's my ambition and it's my intention to write a second book as a sequel, which I want to call The Box is Blue, lifting the lid on the impact of addiction on families, because they are the forgotten victims and often the hidden victims suffering, which is why they turn to Drug Fam.
Now, you're pretty tireless in what you do. When you've spoken at, you know, goodness knows how many schools and over 1,000 public appearances, and you've been recognised for this. You've been given the MBE for the work that you've done.
Yes, I have.
Which must have been quite a nice thing.
It was amazing. It was a lovely, lovely day, I must say.
There's a picture here. There you are with the Prince of Wales investing in.
I must say the excitement of the day, plus the Prince of Wales, was meeting Ed Sheeran, who was there to receive his MBE in the same lineup as me.
Oh, fantastic.
For his charity work.
Well, you've done great work and you've managed to turn something, well, it couldn't be more negative, could it really? And you've managed to turn it round into a positive in terms of your life and what you do. Now, Nick was one of a twin, wasn't he? He was.
That's right.
So what happened to the other brother?
Well, he's doing extremely well.
Because he was in the same predicament.
Yes, he is. I don't normally talk about him or identify him because he is doing very well. He's very happily married and he's on our board of trustees. And he's great if you've got a problem with a computer.
But the big problem, Elizabeth, is this. Drugs are everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cocaine use in London.
Equal opportunities, destroyer of lives anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, in affluent London.
Yes.
In people working in reasonably well-paid jobs, it seems, I don't know, people between 25 and 45 or whatever the age bracket is. I mean, the numbers that take this stuff, it's just off the charts.
It is, yeah.
It's reached the most astonishing level. It's leading to a big debate. Would decriminalising an education help or not? I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I don't get involved in, to be honest, in sort of debating about decriminalisation because it's our focus is on the families. And I think that's very important that we stick with supporting them and being available for them 9 till 9, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's what our...
It's a separate debate then.
It's a separate debate.
Fine, no,
really.
I get that, and we'll drop that.
Yes,
We'll drop that. That's fine. But I mean, it is a debate that is
very
being
important,
had, and it's a very
yes,
difficult one to get right. But, Elizabeth Burton-Phillips, I want to put this to you. I've heard governments for 20 years and more talk about the war on drugs. And it seems to me we're losing it every year, that I think drug use is more widespread than it ever was, is more accepted than it ever was. We see states all over America legalizing marijuana use. And I just wonder, do you feel you're fighting a losing battle here?
Not at all. I see huge stories of recovery, stories of hope. Only just before Christmas did I hear from a lady that we've been supporting in the north who's had 3 children on drugs, and one member of her family was so badly affected by alcoholism and addiction to alcohol that we thought that it was going to be not far from a funeral. This lady is now turning her life around and is finding recovery. And it's just wonderful to hear from our family members.
So there are individual stories of redemption.
Yes, redemption.
And that's a positive. But my broader question about just the wholesale, widespread use of drugs of all kinds. How on earth do you win that?
Education. You just do not give up. You never ever give up educating our young people about the dangers, just starting with the cigarette, where the branding is all about the nicotine, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I'm a bit of a sinner on that score, I have to say, but, you know...
Well, I've been there as well when I was young.
And you were having a glass of wine, so in moderation, these things can be OK.
Can be very enjoyable, yes.
But some people would apply that argument to cocaine and other drugs, wouldn't they?
Some people would, and some people do, but... you know, the cocaine problem, I think, is the biggest one of them all, because that's seen as sort of party drug. Let's do it at the weekends or, you know, over Christmas and let's all get high. And then all of a sudden that is seriously out of control because it is so addictive. Combine it with alcohol, you get a lot of domestic violence as well. So it's part of endemic in society.
We saw this at Euro 2020.
Yes.
We saw these sort of mass scenes of people just being out of their minds, and cocaine had played a very significant role in that.
Yeah.
You know.
It's very worrying to think, you know, family goes off to the football match and the father's got 3 or 4 children with him and he's snorting cocaine in the loo, getting high. I think we need to get back to finding our own highs, but without becoming an addict.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
The GB News pub is open. It's Talking Pints. I'm joined by Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch and former diplomat. Alp.
Nigel, can I toast GB News and Nigel Farage?
Well, that's a very good start. Thank you. Now, talking of starts, you're from the Empire.
I am indeed. I'm a product of the Empire.
I mean, this abusive, awful, terrible empire. I mean, surely you should hate the British for all of this.
Why should I hate them?
Well, that's what we're told, that we should be ashamed of our colonial history. And you were born in Cyprus when it was a colony?
I was indeed. And my father was a Windrush generation migrant.
Yeah.
He came over here in 1950.
Yep.
In the days when you could, frankly, he was going from one bit of the empire to another. He came here, stayed here for about 5 years, made his little pile, returned to Cyprus, ostensibly to stay, and decided after 9-10 months, he said, I can't stay here, and came back to this country. But he said to my mother, are you coming with me this time? She said, you're not going to the loo without me being there this time. And that was it, really. In 1956, we arrived on his birthday, the 27th of July, 1956. Came in from Dover, or into Dover.
That's interesting.
From Calais.
Yeah, interesting.
And there was a little stamp in my passport, which I still have, showing that I'd left Calais on the 26th of July, 1956. And that was it, really.
So you came here and became very British.
Yeah, I'd like to. I am very British. I'm very proud of being very British. Of course, my name, my looks, my background, I've never denied that. I've never changed my name. I'm very proud of my origins.
Yep.
However, everything that's made me has been England, really.
Yeah.
Where I've grown up, gone to school, studied here, met and married a Welsh girl of all people. We're still together after over 50 years.
Well done you.
We've got 6 grandchildren. My school really gave me so much. And really, that, together with my first job as an immigration officer and then a diplomat, was my way of identifying who I had to pay back, what I had to give back. Migration Watch has allowed me to contribute to the future of this country by advocating the sort of immigration policy that we need.
You say this with great passion. Fascinating. We'll come to Migration Watch, and we may even mention Calais again. But how on earth did you get into the diplomatic service? How did all that happen?
Well, I used to be an immigration officer.
Yep.
And I was in Dover for 9 years, in fact. And then I applied for a job overseas on loan to the Foreign Office as an entry clearance officer, and eventually was selected. The cream of the immigration service in those days would be loaned to the Foreign Office. And I went to Lagos for 4 years doing immigration work. And after 4 years there, I thought, I don't fancy going back to stamping passports. Applied to join the Foreign Office. They encouraged me to do it. I joined the Foreign Office and really had a very happy, enjoyable, successful career.
And you reached a rather impressive position, didn't you?
I ended up ambassador to Iceland, yes, which was fantastic.
Which, from your background in the Foreign Office, pretty uncommon.
Well, I think I was the first generation migrant in the diplomatic service.
Yeah, well, that's amazing.
To reach that
it's amazing.
Yeah.
And Iceland, amazing place. I've been to Iceland, fascinating history. And wild water swimming, I understand, was one of your pursuits there.
I loved the open air swimming.
Wasn't it freezing?
Well, your hair quite often would freeze, but you'd be sitting in this wonderful, warm tub. It was like having a huge bath, really, to sit and wallow in. And it was where a lot of the Icelanders used to do their business. They used to sit in the tubs and just talk. And anyone and everyone was the same. Everyone was on first name terms. Even the president, she would be going off with her little shopping bag to do some shopping, and they'd say, "Hello, Vigdis, how are you?" "I'm well. How are you?" And she was there. "And how's Granny? Is she still doing well?" "Yes." It was that sort of society. Wonderful place.
It's a great little place, and I can't wait to go back, actually. Now you're very much now in the front line of debate in this country. As you know, politically, the whole question of legal immigration, the whole question of numbers, is something that I thought was very, very important and being brushed under the carpet by much of mainstream media, by much of our political class. Do you get a lot of abuse being chairman of Migration Watch?
I do, but it's not just the abuse. It's where a lot of my friends from the diplomatic service, not from my old East End roots as they were, but certainly a lot of my diplomatic service friends turned their noses up rather at my having become part and parcel of Migration Watch.
It's sort of the subject we shouldn't discuss, and it's all too awkward and it's all too difficult.
Well, because going back 20, 30 years, the whole thing got mixed up with race. And that is where the problem lies. Immigration and controlled immigration, for goodness sake, has nothing to do with race as such. Of course, what has happened over the last 20 years, the overseas element, the non-UK born immigration has doubled. We've gone from 4.5 million to 9 million. With children born to those who've come here, first generation migrants, we now have 13.5 million or thereabouts. 21% is ethnic minorities. Now, you could say, so what? And I can go along with that. But if we're talking about a unified, comfortable society, a society where everyone is tolerant of each other, how on earth do you integrate that sort of number having arrived at the speed at which they have arrived? And that is really what concerns me as much as anything now, that the sort of opportunities that I had, that I enjoyed, are not going to be available to so many people arriving so quickly. That poses threats, risks for the future, for the stability of our society.
Of even more division. No, and of course it's a quality of life thing too. I mean, I remember once as leader of UKIP, I talked about traffic on the roads, and the whole of Fleet Street laughed at me. Oh, Farage thinks being delayed on the M4 is because of immigration. Well, actually, if the population goes through the roof, things like traffic, things like access to housing, public services, all of those things. And the Brexit vote actually did express some of that. Sure. But what's happening in Calais right now is no one's passport's being stamped to come to Dover, as yours was in 1956. 28,500 have come across the Channel so far this year. I say illegally. Increasingly, judges don't even want us to use that term, which I find truly astonishing. Is it time we looked at the 1951 Convention on Refugee Status? Is it time we looked at the European Court of Human Rights and the ECHR? Is it time we looked at all of this and said, these things were all written in the 1950s. It's actually time for a rethink on all of this.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems absurd to me that something that was designed for a bygone age and circumstances after the Second World War, still largely the basis for our asylum system that we have now. That is ridiculous. But just going back one step, Nigel, over the last 20 years, our population increase, and it's been considerable, 84% of that has been due to immigration. Immigration, children born to migrants. That is huge. How on earth are we going to cope?
And it's continuing.
Schools, housing, you name it.
And it's continuing. It's continuing.
Absolutely.
There's no sign of this government wanting to change any of it.
Can I blame you slightly for that as well?
Oh, everyone blames me for everything. I mean, why not?
Well, you popularised the points-based system, the Australian points-based system.
Because people understood it.
That people did understand it. The problem is that what they understood it to be is not what was actually introduced.
Oh, but it's
Australian in name.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, because the point about an Australian-style point system is you can set the barriers as high as you want to set them. And actually what this government have done is they've actually brought the barriers down.
Precisely.
So I'm not going to have that.
Well, you are partly the reason why people thought it was a terrific thing. And it hasn't really. What has been introduced has opened up our jobs market to something like 600 million people.
It's unfinished business. It's unfinished business. But it's what's happening over the Channel that is the most visible of this.
Indeed.
And is angering the majority, and that's the point always to make, the silent majority are with us on this. How many will cross the Channel next year, given the measures that Priti Patel's proposing?
Last year, you will recall, it was 8,400 and something. This year, it's over 28,000. And you and I were saying back in July, August, it's going to get to 30,000. Well, it's not far off it. If it triples again next year, who knows?
I know.
90,000? I don't think it will be that many, but it will be considerably more than 28,500.
No, Alp, you've got a busy job doing what you're doing. Finally, and importantly, how are Leyton Orient doing?
Leyton Orient are not doing too badly this year. Leyton Orient go up and down, and it wouldn't be the O's if they didn't.
Well, that was Alp Mehmet, and that's a very good example on Talking Pints of somebody who was an immigrant to the country who now is completely a part of it. You see, we're not against immigration, we just want it managed.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview Channel 236.
On Sky, we're Channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV to watch the channel.
Yeah, and if you are doing that, find out more about retuning by going to gbnews.uk.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, Talking Pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
It's that time of the day. The GB News pub has been declared open. It is Talking Pints. Now, before I introduce my guest this evening, I was at the osteopath's the other day, and he was chatting to me. He said, do you know, he's like, I had a patient the other day who said they were a blogger. What's a blogger? Well, today I've got somebody who's a blogger, a creator. I don't know. He may even be an influencer for all I know, but I'm joined by Maya Twozee. Maya, welcome.
Welcome. Is it too late to say Merry Christmas or...?
Well, I know it's never too late to say that. And let's hope for a better 22.
Absolutely.
So, Maya, before we get to this bizarre world, I say bizarre, actually, to your generation and younger, this is just how they live, it's what they understand, and it influences the clothes people buy, it influences how people vote, it influences what books they read, in absolutely every way, and it's growing and growing and growing. But there are some censorship threats, and we'll talk about that too. But firstly, you are one of the youngest people I've had on Talking Pints. Your background is fascinating. Born in Iran.
Yes, in Tehran, capital,
Which once was a great country.
Yeah, used to be a secular, free market capitalist country with constitutional monarchy. Obviously, some flaws. It wasn't a perfect system, but everything changed. And since then, my parents' family got into trouble.
Yes.
My mother had to come here as a political refugee, a proper political refugee. And then I came as a kid. Of course, under 18, I was allowed to basically come after to join her.
So you are effectively a political refugee?
Technically, I can't take too much credit because I was a child of a...
You were a minor?
But yeah, technically speaking, I didn't go through the process because obviously my mum had to kind of explain the case and everything else. But I came here,
And you can't go back to Iran. You've been cancelled, I believe.
I have been cancelled by Iran, yes. I'm not allowed to go back. And partly, the obvious reason that, obviously we're here, but also because I'm active in politics and media.
Yes.
They believe that, apparently they called me an MI6 Tory agent, because if you're a Tory, back in the day when I was part of the Tory party, you're definitely an MI6 agent. It goes hand in hand, clearly.
Well, they're probably right for all we know.
I mean, I can't really say if it is, even if it's true, I can't say.
So your family have benefited, you've benefited, as a result that we've been a country that for centuries, and nobody in Europe dares talk to us about this, over centuries we have actually offered genuine refugee status to lots of people. When you see what's happening in the English Channel right now, how do we deal with that?
Well, it's tricky, but in terms of before even dealing with it, one of the interesting things I've discovered, because obviously on YouTube I make videos about it, and on Twitter a lot of people attack me. A lot of the so-called kind of white liberal lefties who tell me that, why are you complaining? These people look like you, so you should support them. You should just bring everybody here.
Isn't racism a funny thing?
It's funny, yeah. But the interesting thing is that they say, well, it's the likes of Nigel Farage that should complain. They complain. Yeah, the white native English. Well, actually, it's mostly the proper integrated refugees and migrants who are here, including first wave. These are the people who are complaining more about the illegal migrants. You just don't hear about it, of course. They're part of the silent majority. They don't really go on TV. They don't get invited by BBC or Sky to go on TV and talk about how, as a legal migrant, I don't like illegal migration. But it's true.
Now, I'm interested, you came and lived in South London, Lewisham, you grew up, and I'm interested in your political epiphany. Obviously being directed towards the Labour Party, because kind of Lewisham's the Labour area, and I've no doubt at school, etc., there were influences perhaps sending you in that direction. So tell me what happened with your engagement with the Labour Party.
I do believe that growing up in Lewisham, that made me not be Labour because the pressure, the mob rule mentality, the peer pressure that they said, well, this is the Labour heartland. And obviously I came from an ordinary middle-class family in Iran. Yeah. So that meant good education, but that also meant when we came here, ended up in a council estate, which was a bit of a culture shock, but kind of more regressive. So I was like, oh, this is interesting, so I'm going to get used to a new environment. But everything I saw, for me and my family, we were just happy that we're embracing this new culture because they gave us a fresh chance, a fresh start. Everybody in the neighbourhood, well, as a whole, were complaining, saying this is the worst country in the world, we're all dying, like this is the end of the world as we know it. And everybody was just complaining. And people like my family, this type of, if you want to call them migrants or refugees or just humans, we don't see ourselves as victims. Everything is an opportunity. Even if you're at the bottom, when they're coming here, starting, fresh on a council estate, I had to do everything from scratch. But I didn't complain. I didn't believe that, well, the bankers are rich, so I'm not going to get rich. But I got out of it. But that made me realize that it was always inside me, the kind of the free market capitalist side of me, that kind of believe in, but also in terms of embracing the British culture and being proud of being British.
Yeah, I mean, look, actually, to be fair to the Labour Party, for much of its history, it was a very patriotic political party. And one of the reasons it's gone wrong and lost that northern wall is it lost that connection. It kind of lost its way with patriotism, with border controls, with things like that. So as a free market conservative, and now somebody who is a political creator.
YouTuber.
You're a YouTuber. You are a YouTuber. Yeah. So, come on, explain to an audience who may not understand this. Yeah. What do you do for a living, Maya Twozee?
Apparently it's a job. A lot of people in my family still don't believe like that. You can't make money, right?
So, come on, what do you do?
Essentially, it is... It's an online
And why
news
do you
channel.
do it? And why do you do it?
But that's the thing. Like yourself, and people like yourself, that you kind of focused on the political left behind. I discovered the last couple of years ago, that there is also such thing as media left behind, in terms of the left behind who are also being let down by the mainstream media, the old kind of legacy types of channels. And it was the height of Brexit negotiation. It was Theresa May. And I just randomly started. I was getting frustrated with everything that we were getting from the news. So I just decided to make videos to kind of simplify things and kind of make things more easier to kind of just relate to and give the facts, but be open to people about my own biases and say, so these are the facts, this is my opinion, now form your own view. And it took off, and people actually then stopped watching your legacy channels, and there was a gap in the market, and this is obviously before GBNews, obviously, that broke through, and there's a revolution now. But that became the go-to source for a lot of people around the country. I got more views than certain other channels, the legacy channels.
You've got about 250,000 people that follow you on YouTube, and you've had over 100 million video views, which is a big number. So can a person like you earn a good living doing that?
Yes, it's possible. It feels like we're going to have to release my tax. No, is there?
No, because there are a lot of people out there now, not necessarily in politics, but in fashion, in art, in all of these things. There are a lot of people out there who are, it seems, earning their living. You get by, you do okay doing this.
Yes, but I have had my issues with YouTube as well, quite recently, because whilst we complain, people like me, the alternative media guys, that they're all Afghan and all the kind of, there are a lot of restrictions with kind of the real world. Yeah. YouTube, they have massive restrictions. So if you say the wrong thing accidentally, or it comes out the wrong way, the system, the kind of the AI that they have, and also the people who actually monitor it, they could bring you down any moment. The channel could go, and there was a period quite recently where my channel got hit. And so, while it could be good, the good days where I could make a lot of money and I could actually influence people, actually give them what they want to hear, but it could go away any moment. It could get cancelled.
This is the scary thing, isn't it? Because, and I was talking about this with our guest from Hong Kong Watch earlier. When social media first arrived, it was liberating because it was a way of getting round the back of what the mainstream wanted to present, going directly to people. And I don't think the political revolution of 2016 could have happened without social media.
Yeah.
In my case, it was YouTube.
Yes.
It was my speeches in the European Parliament, reaching a big audience in Britain. Suddenly people knew, walking down the street, who I was. That's what did it for me. For Trump, it was Twitter.
Yeah.
Direct communication out to 50, 60, 70 million Americans. Yeah, it didn't matter what CNN said. He was having that direct conversation. And it almost seems to me that the people that created this stuff on the west coast of America suddenly became horrified about what the impact of it had been. And we now see Trump himself, of course, is banned. You're kind of saying that, in a sense, you have to be careful about individual words because they're the triggers. I mean, where are we going with this?
It is tricky. You mentioned 2016 and yourself in terms of the platform you got and Trump with Twitter. There was also another one, Arab Spring. The Egyptian protest and revolution actually happened on Facebook. Yeah. It was because of Facebook organising the groups and events and things like that. So it's been happening for a few years. Where we go now, and you're absolutely right that, for example, the big tech kind of liberal left establishment, they realised, oh, I mean, we created a good thing, but we're actually also giving a kind of chance to our opponents, people we don't like, to be empowered. And now they're freaking out. It's sort of like what the CCP would do in China, but like the Chinese Communist Party will want to control things. But that makes more sense. They're communist and authoritarian. Why are the kind of so-called liberal, big tech, open and kind of tolerant society that we have, they want to shut down someone like me or yourself or Trump on Twitter? You mentioned words. You can't say COVID. When COVID started, the first lockdown, I couldn't use the word COVID. I had to say the health crisis or the lockdown situation.
Really?
You can't say certain words, you just get demonetized. You can't say war. Even if you say, I hate war, the context doesn't matter. So you have to use, there was a video I did, and it was about, obviously, it was a context about Germany, Second World War. So I had to say, what happened in Germany back in the 1940s and when they got rid of their tyrant. I couldn't say certain words. I couldn't even say Hitler. Yeah. So that's where we are.
Are there going to be other companies that come along and start to provide alternatives? I mean, there are one or two that are trying, aren't there?
Yeah, and I think there are like alternatives to Twitter. There's a new app called Getter.
Parler, got Rumble. There are attempts being made.
The problem is, so some of them have already failed, and some of them actually are still going really well. I think the way you kind of counter it, and for example, the new apps like Getter, getting it right, is you can't sell yourself as the right-wing version of Twitter or right-wing version of YouTube, because accidentally you will create an echo chamber. It has to be sold as we are basically going to be the alternative mainstream.
A bit like the Brexit vote.
Basically.
Well, yeah, but it brought in millions of Labour voters that most people in London didn't really understand. You were a member of the Conservative Party.
Not anymore.
You believe in free markets.
Yep.
You believe in aspiration. You believe in low tax. He sounds like Boris's nightmare, doesn't he, really? So when did you leave?
So I used to be an active member. About 10 years ago, I joined, and
you stood as a candidate.
Kind of classic student activist, local members, stood as council candidates, and as a young kind of politico and Tory, you think, well, the only route is I should become an MP. Then I worked in Parliament for a bit, and Westminster, and I realised, that's not a good idea. When you see what happened in the bubble, firstly, there's no money. There's no actual influence unless you become really prime minister, and because you could have influence depending on what you are and what you're about. For example, Steve Baker, Mark Harper, these guys like backbenchers, they have influence for certain areas as campaigns. But I got out because I realised I'm just getting too old for that. I'm not going to just keep waiting and waiting for something because I kept seeing a lot of my friends who thought that the only way you could actually influence in terms of the world and politics and everything else is party. You don't have to.
No, there are lots and lots of ways.
Yeah, media is...
So how do you feel about the party now, the direction it's taking?
Problem I have with the party is not necessarily just the fault is like Boris Johnson's leadership is like not going well or their policies. That's clearly a problem now. But there's a deeper problem with the whole system, from Tory HQ to the culture of Toryism. The one thing they credit to the Tories, the whole party is based on just survival and winning and kind of maintaining power.
And adapting.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes they have to then do the right things to win. For example, they eventually had to get Brexit done.
Yeah, they had to. I mean, they were very reluctant.
But that was thanks to a different political party that was created to push for that.
if they hadn't done that, the Brexit party could have won the next election, and they weren't going to allow that. Maya, finally, a message, please, to youngsters watching this who fancy their chances as being YouTubers, creators. How do they start?
Don't do it. don't aim for it. It's just one of those things where you can't really plan it.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News home and security editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
So looking ahead then to this evening's weather, and the UK looking rather drier with showers easing and clear spells, although rain arrives in the southwest. Let's take a look at the detail then. The southwest of England already cloudy with hill fog edging eastwards. Outbreaks of rain already across much of Devon and Cornwall. In contrast, drier and clearer across the southeast. Winds will be easing, which will allow temperatures to fall away. It's going to be much drier for South Wales, but cloud already thickening from the southwest with some hill fog and light rain possible. And much clearer skies across the Midlands, where it's going to be mostly dry. The odd shower possible there, especially towards the north, but remaining mostly dry. Temperatures falling away under clear skies. And those showers easing over the northeast of England this evening, with increasing amounts of clear skies developing, those clearing skies easing, winds allowing temperatures to quickly fall away after sunset. And a similar picture too for Scotland. Clear skies again developing as those showers ease into the evening, turning colder under the skies, especially in the east. So although it's a dry end of the day for Northern Ireland, high cloud will already be edging eastwards through the evening, helping to keep those temperatures a little milder. And looking ahead to tomorrow, cloud and hill fog gradually edging eastwards overnight, with patchy outbreaks of rain and drizzle affecting many western areas. And that's how the weather's shaping up overnight into tomorrow and for tomorrow morning.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello there, I'm Eamon.
And I'm Isabel.
And you're watching the GB News digital stream across the United Kingdom.
And around the world.
If you're here in the UK, you can also watch us on your TV screen. GB News is Freeview channel 236.
On Sky, we're channel 515.
626 on Virgin Media.
Just remember, you might need to retune your TV.